was an interesting announcement just a couple of weeks ago. Jack Pelton had just come back from Washington, D.C. Monday night prior to Lakeland. I spoke with him Tuesday morning for a couple hours, and in his hot little hands was an interesting piece of paperwork that could signal a bit of a paradigm shift, and yet it's created consternation, if you will, among certain segments of the avionics and GA community. And what this is about is the AAA has managed to put together an STC that allows, in this particular case, but more later, a single experimental avionics manufacturer to install as a primary attitude reference Dynon displays in a couple of examples of Cessna and Piper aircraft, and serve as drop-in replacements for what was there previously. They're little digital displays and electronic and battery backup and all kinds of interesting stuff, and fairly inexpensive. And we've heard real interesting comments, especially from those who are looking to the technology going, gee whiz, neat. And then the avionics industry going, okay, how's this going to work? Your thoughts?
Certainly a paradigm shift. However, I think it holds significant promise for the future in equipment and in installations. The AEA has always been a leader in supporting the FAA's efforts to streamline traditional regulatory requirements into consensus standards, new regulation philosophies, et cetera. And while somehow this was reported that somehow the Experimental Aircraft Association and the FAA collaborated on this new and novel means of compliance, that really is simply not true. The method they used to create this STC exists today in the rules. It is open to any STC applicant that is willing to accept the general limitations of the STC they created. So there is significant hope and possibilities for future pieces of equipment, non-certified and even certified equipment, to use these type of standards. They used standards-based pathways to achieve this STC. Our hope is that our shops and our manufacturers are also not held to the traditional TSO and PMA requirements this particular STC it contains, that it does not contain. They didn't follow the traditional TSA and PMA requirements. So if it happens with that particular instance, it should be across the board. And I think that was probably, speaking on behalf of my members, the avionics manufacturers, I think that was the biggest question is, for years they've invested, as I said a little earlier, thousands of dollars in meeting TSO or PMA requirements. And now that if that is not going to be required, then it should not be required across the board and not for one single manufacturer obtaining an STC. So once we learn more of the content of that particular STC, and the FAA says that they will share the pathway of how EAA got to that, then I think it should be opened up across the board to all industry.
Is the requirement for certified shops to do the installation a blessing or a curse?
Wow, what a great question. I think you would have to ask the shops that question, because I think the answer will vary. It is a change, it's a dramatic change, and I think they will see this as an opportunity. I think other shops will see this as a detriment to what they have done for years and what they have trained on and excelled at. So I don't feel right to answer for them. I think you would have to ask individual shops how they plan to approach this in the future.
If AEA had more of a say in where it goes from here, what would it like to see?
Well, since AEA has, in its 59 years of existence, represented certified equipment manufacturers into certified aircraft, obviously the traditional means and the traditional ways of certifying the equipment is evolving. It's changing. And I think for us to stick our head in the sand and not realize this, that change is imminent, the health of our industry is at stake here. So these new untraditional ways of doing business are something that we cannot ignore, that I think that we have to be right alongside there and learn and represent our members, the repair stations and the manufacturers, as we go along. As I said in the beginning, it is definitely a paradigm shift. And we will work at the mercy of our members and take their input, and we will take it to Washington, and hopefully whatever change occurs, and obviously there is change afoot, we will embrace it and we'll go from there.
I've had some interesting phone calls the last couple of months. I get these wonderful calls about, boy, aviation seems cool and I really want to, I don't want a real job, I want to work in aviation, and then we get into that lecture. But in many cases, the people I'm talking to, especially prior military with some background in various areas, we're talking to them about maintenance careers, avionics careers, and things of that nature. What is the state right now of avionics education to bring new technicians into the fold? Because I hear countless times from the shops, yeah, boy, could I use a couple of more techs. Are we really ready at this point to bring more people in? Is this industry capable of educating the folks who want to come into it?
I think perhaps even a step before that, can we find those people that want to come into this industry? I think that's the biggest challenge right now. I think, yes, we can educate them, we can pay them, but finding, I started to say young people, even middle-aged people who are looking for a career change, we would welcome them. But it's finding the people that have the interest in the maths and sciences, that have that technical want to come into the industry. That's our biggest challenge. And we are encouraging our shops, because we hear it all the time too, Jim, we can't find good, experienced help. Can you help us? We always have a lot of career listings in our magazine and on our website as well. And they sit there sometimes for a few months before they can find a qualified technician. At this point, we are encouraging our shops to actually work with local schools, tech schools, or universities, if they're lucky enough to have a university close by, and mentor these students, bring them in, do a lot of on-the-job training, introduce them to the world of avionics. A lot of students today, when you say, would you like to work in the aviation industry, they automatically assume I'm going to be a pilot for a commercial airline, or maybe even a regional or corporate entity. But there's so many opportunities beyond flying the airplane. It's a struggle and it's a challenge for all of industry to encourage students to consider a career in the aviation maintenance industry.
You've got a scholarship program that is pretty aggressive. I would imagine you've got some interesting success stories coming out of that over the years.
We really do, and it's really a great feeling to see these students who apply, and then they are awarded one of the scholarships. And let me back up, we've got over 20 scholarships we award each year worth over $100,000 total. And the majority of those are for students seeking a career in aviation maintenance, avionics, engineering, aviation management degrees. And to follow along some of those students and see the success they've had in getting jobs once they graduate. The savvy avionics shops are closely working with these schools, either, as I said, the tech schools or universities, watching the graduating class coming up, and most of those students have jobs the minute they receive their degree. And they can really pick any place in the United States they would like to work, because just about every avionics shop is on the look and the hunt for an avionics technician, especially with the ADS-B mandate coming up in 4.5 years, and obviously the demand. Absolutely, yes.
Is the Aeroverse, the aviation community at large, are we taking ADS-B 2020 seriously?
Not yet, and I wish they would. Obviously, the mandate is not going to change. The FAA has said time and time again, and now the clock is ticking, 4.5 years left. People are beginning to take it a little more seriously. And I think that's because industry itself is doing a better job of saying, look, there's so many avionics shops and there's only so many slots for installs. The longer you put it off, the harder it is going to be to schedule your installation. And supply and demand. If the technicians at these shops are expected to work on weekends and overtime, they're going to have to be paid more for that. Hence, your install bill is going to be higher to cover that added expense. So we have a lot of shops that are getting creative. They are actually doing slot programs, which I think is a fantastic idea. They're encouraging their customers to pick a slot, whether it be second quarter of this year, fourth quarter of this year, maybe first quarter of 2017. Pick a slot, put it down a deposit, and you're guaranteed that install date. That helps the shop plan ahead then too, and be able to staff effectively and buy product efficiently as well. So people are beginning to get a little more serious, not nearly the numbers we would like to see, because there's still over 100,000 aircraft that need to be equipped in the next 4.5 years.
Or to paraphrase one shop, 2019 is going to be a bear.
Yes, absolutely. It will be. You know, people keep waiting for prices to go down, down, down.
I don't think they can go
I don't know how
further.
much lower they can really go at this point. 2 years ago, I said it's going to be hard for the manufacturers to lower the prices any more than they are, and they proved me wrong, and they did lower prices. There's a lot of great entry-level ADS-B out systems that are great price, and they just, you know, they're at the bare bones minimum price at this point. I don't see them going much lower.
Shifting gears again, there has been a lot of dissatisfaction in the sport, general, and light business aviation community in regards to the representation they feel they need and deserve throughout the industry in various forms, whether it be the FAA, the associations, and the like. In many cases, we're finding that the groups that should be responding to them are really not defining their mission or what they do. So here I am, Joe 172 pilot. Tell me what I need to know about AEA, and more important, what you do for me.
In a roundabout way, what we do for the general, 172 pilot is his preferred avionics shop. If they happen to be an AEA member, and most likely they are, we represent the majority of certified repair stations in the United States and several countries around the world. If their shop is an AEA member, they can be assured that the technicians in that shop are offered the opportunity for beginner, intermediate, and advanced training on all the latest avionics equipment. They are aware of all the regulatory requirements for the installation of that equipment through our regulatory programs and our regulatory training classes and so forth, and knowing that our VP of Government Affairs, Rick Perry, is a phone call away from them if they have questions about any of the regulations.
One of the most knowledgeable guys in Washington.
Absolutely.
Period. End of story.
He can read the regs forward and backwards and then recite them to you. I think just the confidence and the ability for the pilot to know that an AEA member repair station can take advantage and has the opportunity to be highly trained on the installation that they're going to be performing on that 172 or whatever the aircraft might be, from experimental up to business category, and that they are aware of the regulations. They receive, our monthly magazine that keeps them up to date on all the technologies. We're not only a trade association, but we are an educational body for the avionics industry as well. And to me, if a pilot is looking for a shop to do an install, it's just an added level of comfort to know that that shop cares enough to belong to a professional trade association that offers that type of benefits and services.
Your crystal ball, we know you got it. We've heard all the stories. Look forward. What can we expect from the avionics industry over the next year or two or three?
My crystal ball is telling me that we are going to be so heavily focused on ADS-B and meeting that demand that a lot of the manufacturers will continue to be churning out ADS-B product. But besides that, ADS-B is such the buzzword, and it has been for the last 3 or 4 years, and it will continue to be until 2020, and a few years beyond, I suspect. But there's so many other exciting things in aviation and avionics. As I mentioned earlier, the offerings of the cabin entertainment systems and Wi-Fi and connectivity, there's no end to what is to come in that market. And I think you'll see some more announcements in the morning in that particular segment of the market. Cabin entertainment, obviously more flight display systems with greater enhanced vision, heads-up technologies, synthetic vision. The list goes on and on. As we said at the beginning of the interview, these manufacturers are so creative and their engineering is second to none. It's what keeps our industry going, and I think comparing it to the consumer electronics industry, I would say we even though it may take us longer to bring a product to market than your traditional consumer electronics market, the ingenuity and the technology behind these pieces of equipment are amazing. It's an industry to be proud to work in.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the 59th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from Orlando, Florida, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
The TrueBlue Power TA202 series high-power USB charging port requires no bulky external power converters for 10 to 32 VDC installation. The in-seat, cabin, and cockpit power source delivers all the power you need in a small, economical, easy-to-install package. Available from your local avionics dealer.